I need to contact my people in Calico. Is there a telegraph station nearby?
A couple of miles south, sure. But there's one small problem.
Probably should have led with that, Padre.
We need more games like Evil West. When I say that, I mean that we need more AA games with AAA polish. I don't think this is the best game I ever played. I don't think it'll ever get more than mostly positive on Steam's metrics. But I had a good time, and it didn't outstay its welcome.
While we're on the dynamite, Chester will be none too chatty with his guts sprayed all over a train carriage.
I know how to shape an explosion, Edgar.
Wait for it. Now!
Yeah. Harrow's not gonna be happy about the bridge.
Evil West is a third-person action game developed by Flying Wild Hog. You play as Jesse Rentier. Rentier?
Secretary Harrow, sir?
Agent Rentier.
You're a rentier!
A field agent working for the Rentier Institute. The RI is devoted to fighting the vampire menace that plagues the United States in the 1800s. With financial backing from the White House, the Institute is the last line of defense against vampires, or ticks as they're commonly referred. After a successful raid on a local vampire nest, Jesse returns to the Institute with a trophy in the form of the head of the leader. The leader's surviving kin attack the Institute's headquarters as retaliation and to retrieve his head. Jesse's dad, the man in charge of the Institute, is found critically wounded at the hands of the vampire leader's daughter. Jesse and company head off to Calico, an RI outpost with the most cutting-edge technology to treat Jesse's father. The liaison between the Institute and the White House is breathing down Jesse's neck over what went down with the recent vampire attack. Jesse spends the rest of the story trying to find a way to save his dad and keep his organization afloat amidst a growing vampire horde. Before I bought the game, I watched a friend stream it and he explained to me the premise. My jaw dropped when I realized that Evil West was basically the Order 1886. But good. So how does Evil West play? The game is broken up into several chapters. Each chapter starts and ends with Jesse at his base of operations, where he gets briefed on the next mission. A short cutscene sets the stage for each field mission, and you're off to one of the various locales in the game. This is a character action game, but with guns. Levels are broken up into arenas for combat, and connecting sections where you hunt for loot and solve basic puzzles. But the main draw to this game is the fighting. If you're facing an enemy, you're either punching or shooting. Press R1 to punch, and keep pressing it to pull off a simple combo string. Hold R1 to uppercut. If you keep holding R1 while pressing forward on the left stick, Jesse will do a follow-up spike in the air that will home in on enemies. If an enemy throws out an attack, you can block it by holding L1. If you catch the attack at the right time, you'll stun the enemy, and you can pummel them with an E combo by mashing R1. If an enemy flashes orange, you can kick them out of their attack by pressing in the right stick. You can avoid enemy attacks by tapping A in the direction you want to move to dash, and double tapping A results in a roll that puts more distance between you and the enemy. As you progress in the game, you'll learn more advanced moves like doing a ground shock or slamming enemies you've launched into the air. Some enemies will be out of reach. You can shoot them with your pistol by tapping R2. Holding R2 lets you fan the pistol and let out a rapid-fire barrage. Some enemies will expose a weak spot before doing a ranged attack. You can exploit that weak spot by aiming at it with your rifle or crossbow by holding down L2 and then firing your gun with R2. Jesse has a lot of weapons at his disposal, but don't mistake Evil West to be a bog-standard third-person shooter. This game is if Doom Eternal was a beat-em-up. One of the first things you'll learn is to launch enemies into the air with your uppercut and juggle them by fanning the pistol. Instead of swapping weapons using a wheel or hotbar, they're split up into either face buttons or a D-pad toggle. Press square to fire your shotgun. It's good for burst damage, but also weakens a certain enemy's shield, so that you can break it with your punches. Press triangle to stun all enemies in the arena. When I first got this weapon, I thought it was a combat cross from Lords of Shadow, which wouldn't have been too out there for me as Jesse's design looks like the devs put a cowboy hat on Gabriel Belmont. Press circle to heal. All of your face button actions besides dodging operate on cooldown timers. You can shorten the length of time it takes for heal to recharge by punching enemies. Your D-pad weapons look like they also have cooldown timers, but that's not the case. The meter actually represents a gun's ammo. Unlike other shooters, you don't collect ammo for your guns in Evil West. Instead, you fire your guns until you need to reload or switch to another gun. Then that gun refills its stock while it's not being fired. It's an interesting way to look at guns in video games, and I like it. The only weird one of the bunch is the grenades. It's weird to think that grenades need time to recharge before you can throw one off again. Besides sidestepping and rolling, Jesse has another type of dodge in the form of his gauntlet. Hold L1 and press forward on the left stick to zip towards the nearest target. Weaker enemies will be stunned by the electric attack, which lets you get in an E combo while they're down. Conversely, you can pull enemies towards Jesse by holding L1 and pulling back on the left stick. Only weak enemies will be pulled by the tether. When an enemy is at critical health, it'll go into a daze and start flashing. Any attack you do to them will result in a glory kill that drops a health pickup. Props to Flying Wildhog for making Jesse invincible during the glory kill animations. It not only protects him from bullshit damage, but it also gives you time to plan your fight. If you're swarmed with a ton of powerful enemies, you can take advantage of a glory kill animation to have a moment to breathe before getting back into the fight. Below Jesse's health are a series of batteries. When you have 4 of them filled up, you can pop Jesse's double trigger. He zips around and punches any enemy you've targeted and can let off a powerful blast by pulling R2. I usually hate these kinds of devil triggers, but I think it works for Evil West. It doesn't look boring like the one in Devil's Hunt, and actually reminds me of another devil trigger from another game I reviewed earlier this year. Progression is split up between weapon upgrades and character perks. You collect money throughout the game and spend it on your upgrades. Each weapon has 3 tiers of upgrades that are locked away either by level gating or because you need to find them in treasure chests, scattered throughout the game. The final level for most weapons gives them electrical properties. When Jesse levels up, he gains points he can use to unlock perks. Each perk only requires 1 point, but it takes more XP to get to the next level. Perks can enhance Jesse's combos or unlock new abilities for his gauntlet. To get perks further down a progression path, you need to unlock the previous perk. I recommend building towards a perk that lets you pull 3 enemies towards you, as it sets up some good openers for combos, along with the one that lets you block stun multiple enemies at the same time. Also, if you're playing with controller, keep aim assist on. I turned it off at the start because I was being cocky, but the game lets you stack on the range units, and you need to instantly snap to the ones with exposed weak spots. Admittedly, aim assist does trivialize some on-rail segments, but I think it's a decent trade-off. Enemies start off as human thralls, but then get progressively more monstrous. You'll fight Frankensteins, Wolfmen, Batmen, Spider-Men, Molemen, and whatever the hell these things are. Each enemy type has their own set of attack patterns that you'll learn to memorize and anticipate. Combat can catch you off guard if you're not prepared for the type of gameplay that Evil West is offering. I died a lot in the early game because I wasn't aware of all the little nuances to the game's combat. It does a decent job giving you tutorial screens like Doom Eternal before encountering new mechanics, and once you understand all the things you can do at a given moment and know which abilities are on cooldown, you can weave in and out of enemy attacks while setting up your own combo chains. I still die on my first attempts in later fights, but the checkpointing is nice enough to throw me back into the fight. Most boss fights become common enemies in later sections, but there are 3 bosses that are unique in their own right. 2 of them are spoilers, so I'll obscure their names. I was worried when I faced the first boss because it was everything I said I hated about AAA bosses back in my Space Marine video. It had a bunch of attack patterns I had to memorize to avoid damage while fishing for weak spots, and spawn ads to distract me from the main target. But the other 2 bosses were proper one-on-one duels. No ads thrown in to distract me. One of them looks and plays like a Bloodborne boss, so good to know that the devs weren't just looking at that game as an inspiration for environmental aesthetics. I've had friends tell me that Evil West combat looks a lot like modern God of War because of how close the camera sticks to Jesse, as well as a few attack animations. I haven't played God of War yet, so I can't comment on that. When I see a game with this kind of camera and spinning backpress animations, my mind goes to a different game altogether. Also, this is deadass chain yanker. I said this game is if the Order 1886 was good, and boy does that claim stick. Both games are about government-sanctioned organizations that fight werewolves and vampires with lightning-based weaponry.
There's a sacred relationship between the hunter and its prey. An understanding. We're not that different, Jesse and DA. Humanity exists within cycles. If you live long enough, you notice the patterns that govern it. The pendulum may swing left and right, but ultimately things remain the same.
I was already content with that pitch for most of the game, but then a lore pickup featured Thomas Edison, and I was cackling over the Nikola Tesla cameo in The Order. But where The Order felt like a game for people who don't play video games, Evil West feels very much like it was made for a video game audience in mind. Everything has big, bulky video game proportions, as if the 7th gen never ended. Pickups are super obvious and use iconography that seems cartoonish and non-diegetic. Saddlebags represent lore that come in the form of photographs or letters from characters in the setting. Bags of gold coins represent money and have the most satisfying animation when you pick them up. I owe Flying Wild Hog an apology because I kept conflating them with People Can Fly, the team that made Bulletstorm. But can you blame me? Evil West and Bulletstorm are both arena shooters where you fight swarms of enemy mobs while using a variety of guns to silently mow them down. Also, they both use electric tethers as weapons. Thing is, I've always hated Bulletstorm. I thought the marketing made its combat look way cooler than it was in practice, and it has the most Reddit dialogue in certain exchanges.
Identify yourself or I will open fire!
Oh, listen, lady, please! We've been stuck here forever! Help us get an evac off-world!
Yeah? Go fuck yourself! You shitpiles give chase, I will kill your dicks!
What? What does that even mean? You're gonna kill my dick? Well, I'll kill your dick! How about that, huh?
Speaking of dick-killing parties.
I knew people who love this game for that bit. What I love about Evil West's story is that it is a pure genre piece. It's a pulp B-horror action plot, but doesn't step on the postmodern rakes like so many other games before it. The cutscenes are letterboxed like The Order, but I let that slide in this game because it's trying to go for that widescreen grungy western movie aesthetic. There's no self-awareness in the plot. No character turns to the camera and winks to the audience.
Oh, hi! Holy moly, where are my notes? As we all know, Faraday's mutual induction phenomenon.
Virgil, take it easy with the jargon, please. You're talking to a field agent.
Diamagnetism, polyphase system. You sure you don't want to hear my radiography joke about... never mind.
Any humor in the game comes from the plot and the characters bouncing off each other. I know I described the proportions for things in this game as 7th gen, but the colors are anything but. Every inch of this game is saturated in color. It's like the art team took a screenshot of Gears of War and put a big red X on it to remind everyone to never make the game look as drab as Gears. The character models have this hyper-realistic look to them that remind me of Dishonored or Brink. Remember Brink? Something else I appreciate in Evil West is that the cast is diverse, but it was never used as a marketing ploy. Jesse's mentor is black, but it's never something that gets brought up. The only one who does suffer a few microaggressions is the head of the science department, but that's only to highlight how the White House liaison is a huge dick.
Maybe it would be for the best if you...
Maybe it would be best if you stopped interrupting me, you groveling mule! You want to make yourself useful? Get to the kitchen and fetch me a cup of coffee!
My favorite character in the bunch is Virgil. Yes, there's a Virgil in this game, but he's not Jesse's Virgil. Weird how it's also spelled with an E like Virgil in DMC. He's the oddicon of the bunch, and his enthusiasm balances with Jesse's overall sourpuss nature.
According to your father, the key to upping the voltage of your gauntlet is reconnecting those transmitters to the central current reservoir.
Oh, English Verge.
See? That's pure genre, right there. Speaking of Virgil, one of my criticisms for Solstice was that there were too many things to do outside of combat, and it killed the momentum of the game. I used a mission in DMC5 as a reference for how puzzles and action games should be paced. Evil West actually does what I was saying, because the only times the game locks you out of progress is when you run into a vampire's glamour. Vampires hide in plain sight, and you have to use a zapper, that's the glove that doesn't look like a steampunk Pip-Boy, to break the illusion. You need to hunt down the nodes scattered about the level to completely break through. I found it interesting how the nodes look similar to the Clivepath in DMC5. In breaking the illusion, it looked like breaking a mirror, similar to when Virgil finally showed up in DMC5. Play Evil West. It's $50 on Steam right now, but I got it discounted from a key site. The campaign is pretty short, so that might deter people from getting the game at full price. My sweet spot for AA games is $40, but I think $50 for Evil West is reasonable because of how polished it is. I got the occasional bug here and there, like how a certain enemy attack would keep playing infinitely until I quit to the main menu and reloaded. But everything else from the game looks about as slick as something from the PS4's early years. This is my jam. Like I said before, we need more games like Evil West.